Good evening, and welcome to the Riverside County ceremony in honor of Veterans Day. Here we are on, the eve of Veterans Day, and we have a special ceremony for you tonight. It's the first time we're doing this in Riverside County, and we're excited to share it with all of you. We'll begin tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to invite up Grant Gauchi, our Director of Veteran Services. Grant?
Thank you. Please join me as we pledge our allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And I just wanted to take a couple of moments to thank our Supervisor Spiegel, and Supervisor Chuck Washington and the board for making Riverside County a Operation Green Light for Veterans county. Counties across the nation are lighting up their counties with the green lights as a way to recognize and show appreciation and thanks for our veterans that served, but also to show our support. You know, counties have a long history of supporting and caring for our veterans when they come home from service, and I'm just honored that Riverside County is a part of this, and looking forward to lighting of the green lights. So, thank you.
Thank you, Grant. And just to note tonight, Grant is a Navy veteran, an old submariner. We are also represented tonight with folks from the Marine Corps, the Army, and as this individual told me, all that really matters, naval aviators. So please join me in welcoming 3rd District Supervisor Chuck Washington.
I want to tell you a little bit of history first. Coming out of high school, I just missed the draft, and I'm not complaining that I missed the draft, but I was too young, graduating from high school, to be drafted, and soon after the draft ended. And ever since then, we've had a volunteer military force. And I think it's the strongest, the smartest, the most intelligent and innovative armed force anywhere in the world. It's amazing the commitment people will make to serve our nation in the military when they're doing it voluntarily. Not long after that period of time when I graduated, I met and married my wife, and then a few years later, I found myself volunteering to join the Navy. I had discovered flying, and I realized that I would never reach my ultimate goal of becoming an airline pilot without that experience of being a military pilot. And some friends that I knew had served in the Navy, and so I went down to the recruiter's office, and they said, yeah, you're qualified. Come on, when can you start? So off I went to Pensacola, got commissioned, started flight training. But I'll have to admit that when I joined, I had that selfish motive of wanting to get that airline job. When I got out 7 years later, I realized, wow, I feel different. I got the airline job. It was boring, actually. Compared to what I'd been doing in the Navy, compared to the feeling I had gotten in serving our country. And so, long story short, ultimately I ended up doing this kind of public service, but I felt like that time that I served in the Navy with a couple of deployments, I didn't like that. I was a new dad. I was away from my wife and young daughter, and I said, I got to get out of here, get that airline job. I don't regret making that move, but I look back and I think, wow, the Navy really forced me to grow up, to become a man, to understand the feeling, the sensation you get when you're doing something, you're involved in something that's bigger than yourself, right? And yet, I served from early 1981 to late 1987. During the Reagan administration, we were never at war. And people would thank me, a couple people have thanked me tonight for my service. And I always felt guilty because I know that some folks have been in armed conflict, and I had not had to go through that very difficult time. And someone pointed out to me, there are a great number of veterans that serve who never actually saw armed conflict, but they were there. They signed up. They said, yes, I will do this for my country, no matter what comes. And I realized, well, actually, that describes me as well. I joined those many veterans that proudly served, didn't serve so people would thank me afterwards, served because my country needed me. And so my words tonight would be thank you to all veterans, whether you served during armed conflict or not. You served our country. We're proud of you. This county has always been a warm place for veterans, a place that accepts veterans open arms and tries to provide for them, even though this is the first time we've turned on the green light. We've always had a home here for veterans, and our data shows that. I was talking to Grant earlier about how we've dealt with homeless veterans, how we've served them. And so I'm proud of Riverside County. I'm proud of what we've done for decades now. And I'm proud for this moment tonight. And I want to thank Supervisor Spiegel for leading the charge on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Washington. This county has a long tradition of supporting the men and women in uniform, whether that's March Air Reserve Base, the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Corona, going back to the days of General Patton and training in advance of various armed conflicts. We are proud of our work on behalf of and in support of our armed services. And the public service that you talked about, Supervisor, continues for many of our Riverside County employees. We are not just a welcoming place to folks to retire this area or live in this area, but actually to come and work in Riverside County. And we have many programs that support veterans and employ veterans. And we're proud of the many, many people who served and continue to serve in that new fashion. Speaking of an individual who is dedicated to public service and to the men and women who have served, and you indicated before, this is really the idea of Supervisor Spiegel bringing this forward. So please allow me to introduce Supervisor Karen Spiegel.
Thank you for sharing, Supervisor Washington. Sometimes we don't know the stories and the real stories of our veterans. You know, my family has not had a wealth of involvement with military. My dad wasn't able to. My brother was in the Marines for 5 years. But my children didn't have that opportunity. My father-in-law was in the Seabees, so we've had some, but not where they were directly influenced. So my husband and I, fortunately, before we even met, had that strong desire to thank those that protect the freedoms that we have. So often we take those for granted. And we just get up in the morning and do our lives, not even giving a second thought to those that put their lives on the line. And when we talk about whether you sign up during conflict time or not, every single person who's in the military signs a blank check. They don't know how much that check's going to be and who's going to cash it. They just know they signed a blank check. And their families also. Their families are involved too. So today's not just about veterans, it's about families, it's about those that have served our country to protect what we stand for. Our country has been alive and thriving, but it wouldn't be if we didn't have those that step up and take that responsibility and serve all of us. So I want to thank you all for being here in this honoring of our veterans. You know, as a united front, lighting up the building green, which is a surprise, I'm going to tell you. Oh, I already told you the surprise. Everybody knows what we're doing, and it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to honor those that served us. And as Chuck explained, it's Operation Greenlight for Veterans. And this is a national program. NACO has done this, so we are part of the counties across the nation that are doing this. So I'm going to ask Supervisor Washington to come up here, and I'm going to ask Grant. I'm going to have you come because you represent all the veterans of Riverside County. And we're going to turn on the switch. So we're going to come over here. This is a real switch. It's going to turn the lights on. I just want to thank the team that did this. Rose, you and your team did an incredible job. I know you looked at me when we first talked about it and said, okay, we'll do it. And I thank you, and I know that everybody here thanks you for everyone on the team. I don't want to sit here and name people, but everybody who had a part in it, thank you.
Supervisor Washington, please stop playing with the switch. The more important question is what's not getting turned on with that switch here today. So Supervisor Spiegel, thank you for this. Supervisor Washington, thank you. Grant, thank you. And thank you for recognizing the team at Facilities Management. They always deliver. But with that, thank you all very, very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. And when we, all month, certainly all year, but certainly on Friday on Veterans Day, please remember the veterans in your lives. Thank you all very much. Good night.